The Vayari were once the pride of the galaxy. Their cities gleamed like silver under twin suns. Their ships were masterpieces of light and speed, and their voices carried songs that could make even the coldest hearts weep. They were thinkers, builders, explorers, an ancient people who had touched more stars than almost any other race. The Galactic Union had once considered their wisdom vital, their counsel essential. But pride, as often happens, can become a dangerous companion. It began with a disease. At first it was small, almost unnoticeable. A fever that came and went, a cough that seemed like nothing serious. The Vayari tried to contain it, isolating their sick, researching cures, sending fleets to pick up supplies. They thought they could handle it. But other species in the Union did not see a people struggling. They saw a threat to trade, to peace, to the carefully balanced order of the stars. Warnings came at first. Subtle, polite, diplomatic. Perhaps your people should remain within your borders. Then stronger demands followed. We cannot allow your colonies to continue. It is dangerous. You must withdraw. And when the Vayari refused, believing their strength and knowledge would protect them, the galaxy turned its back. Fleets barred their passage. Ports were sealed. Trade lines were cut. And one by one, their worlds were abandoned, left to the spreading disease and the despair of isolation. Elder Selen, the Vayari leader, remembered the day the first Union envoy arrived with the final decree. You are cast out. You will find no help among us. You are alone. The words burned into his mind. Alone. They had thought themselves invincible, proud masters of space, and suddenly, they were exiles. Their ships became wandering tombs. Their people, once full of song, now whispered prayers into the dark void. On the last great arc, a vessel more than a kilometer long, the remaining Vayari huddled in shadowed corridors. Their silver skin had dulled to gray. Their eyes, once bright and lively, had become hollow mirrors reflecting the endless black of space. Food supplies were low, medicine even lower. Children cried quietly in corners, their tears silent reminders of a future slipping away. Selen walked among them. He did not have the power to heal their bodies, but he tried to heal their spirits. We are not gone yet, he told them. Even if the galaxy has abandoned us, we still have each other. We still have hope. Hope, though, was fragile. The Ark shuddered under the strain of long travel, its engines groaning as if they shared the exhaustion of the people they carried. Sometimes, when the Vayari passed by empty observation decks, they would stare at distant stars and wonder if anyone, anywhere, would ever look back and see them as beings worthy of life. Despite everything, Selen held counsel each day. Some Vayari had given up entirely, letting despair wash over them like a tide. Others fought bitterly, anger simmering in their veins, cursing the species who had turned their backs. Selen knew the danger of both despair and rage. Despair would kill the soul. Rage could destroy what little chance remained. He tried to balance them, reminding the young, the old, the weary. We are more than what the galaxy says of us. We are more than our suffering. One evening, as the Ark drifted past a cluster of cold, uninhabited worlds, a child approached him. Lyra, no older than 10 cycles, looked up with wide, trembling eyes. Elder Selen, will anyone ever care about us again? Selen knelt, resting his hand on her small shoulder. I do, little one, and I will not stop caring. But sometimes to survive we must wait for a new path to appear. Sometimes we must be patient even when patience is the hardest thing in the universe. Days turned into weeks and weeks into cycles. The Vayari drifted, seeking a safe haven, but none existed. Every star system had its warnings. Do not enter. You are not welcome. Every message they sent out bounced back unanswered or returned with harsh commands to leave. And the sickness, slow and relentless, continued to take hold. The Ark's medical bays were crowded, but there were too few doctors, too few medicines, and too many sick. Elder Selen spent hours there, holding hands, whispering words of comfort, teaching the young to sing the old songs even as they grew weaker. Each note carried memory, each melody a reminder of a life once full of joy. Yet even in the darkest moments, small sparks appeared. Children laughed quietly at the tiny games they invented. Elders shared stories of worlds no longer accessible, of oceans they would never see again. And Selen, sitting alone at night on the observation deck, allowed himself a single thought. We will survive. Somehow we must. It was in this silence that the Ark's sensors suddenly lit up. A faint signal, faint but unmistakable, pierced the endless void. Salen leaned closer, his heart catching. It was not a warning. It was not a demand. It was something alive, something warm. And in that moment, for the first time in cycles, a fragile seed of hope grew in the hearts of the exiled Veari. For the first time, they felt that perhaps the galaxy was not the only home in the stars. Perhaps somewhere out there, someone would see them not as exiles, not as a plague, but as beings worthy of life, worthy of care, worthy of hope. And Elder Selen, eyes misting as he stared at the faint blue light on the monitor, whispered softly to the empty chamber, "Maybe, just maybe, we are not alone." For cycles, the Veari had floated through empty space, abandoned by the galaxy. Hope had become a fragile whisper, a tiny flame barely alive against the cold, endless dark. Yet now, on the Ark's bridge, the signal pulsed again, steady, unmistakable. It was not like the cold transmissions of the Galactic Union or the terse warnings from distant colonies. This one carried warmth. It carried life. Elder Selen leaned over the console, eyes narrowing. The signal was simple yet strange. It carried patterns of sound and light, shapes that seemed almost like music, and under the music a message of words, barely decipherable at first. Laughter, chatter, voices speaking in tones both harsh and melodic. The Veari had never encountered a frequency like this. It was unfamiliar yet comforting. It drew something from deep inside them, something they had thought dead. A council was called. The Ark's main chamber filled with weary faces. Doctors, engineers, teachers, children, all gathered, listening as Selen repeated what he had learned. "It is not a warning," he said. "It is not a command. It is an invitation, a life signal, perhaps a world, alive, perhaps hope." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some were skeptical. "It could be a trap," said one, his voice tight with exhaustion. "The galaxy does not forget or forgive so easily. We could sail straight into death. But what choice do we have?" whispered another. Her voice trembled. "We cannot remain here. Every day our people weaken. We cannot survive alone." Salen's gaze swept across the room. He saw the pale skin of children, the tired eyes of adults, the hollow cheeks of elders. He saw desperation. He saw the weight of exile. And then he made the choice he had been preparing for in his heart for cycles. "We go," he said. "We follow this signal. If this is the only chance the universe offers us, we must take it. We have nothing left to lose but our fear." Preparations began immediately. Engineers repaired engines that had grown tired over decades. Scientists checked long-dormant sensors, calibrating them to track the mysterious source, and the Ark's medical teams organized their weakest, ensuring that every life aboard had a chance to survive the journey. Even with these efforts, fear lingered like a shadow. The younger Veari whispered stories of betrayal, fleets that had vanished when they trusted the wrong species, colonies that had been destroyed by those they once called allies. Children asked questions that had no easy answers. Lyra, the little girl who had approached Salen weeks ago, clung to his robe one night and asked, "Elder, what if they do not help us? What if they send us away again?" Salen knelt beside her, eyes soft, voice steady. "Then we will endure. But even if they do not help, we will know we tried. And that knowledge will be ours forever." Sometimes, little one, hope is not about certainty. It is about taking the step anyway. The Ark shifted its course, engines roaring to life after decades of quiet drifting. For the first time in cycles, the Veari felt motion not as fatigue, but as purpose. They sailed toward the signal, following the faint pulse of life across the void. Each passing system, barren and cold, reminded them of the galaxy's cruelty. Each distant star reflected the harsh truth. They had been rejected, abandoned, and cast out. Yet the signal persisted, like a tiny beacon of warmth in the endless night. And as the days passed, the Veari began to notice small signs of wonder. Sensors detected oceans teeming with life, clouds moving in slow, graceful patterns, vegetation of strange colors. Even the simplest readings suggested that the world below might be hospitable, capable of sustaining life. On the Ark's observation decks, the Veari gathered to gaze at the growing blue orb. Children pressed their faces to the glass, pointing at vast oceans and green continents, whispering names for mountains, rivers, and forests they had never seen before. Some sang songs their elders had taught them, mixing old Veari melodies with the rhythm of the signal itself, as if the music was guiding their hearts toward this strange, new world. Salen, standing alone in the quiet of the bridge, allowed himself a rare moment of emotion. For cycles, he had carried the burden of leadership, watching his people fade into despair. For cycles, he had known hopeless nights where the endless darkness seemed to mock them. And now, as the blue world grew closer in the viewport, he felt something unfamiliar but cherished. The stirring of hope that could heal even the deepest wounds. The closer they came, the more the signal's complexity revealed itself. It was not just music, it was words. Words of welcome spoken in an unfamiliar tongue yet somehow understandable. They were crude, simple syllables, repeating patterns that suggested kindness, curiosity, and a desire to connect. Even the children seemed to sense it, leaning closer to screens, tracing the patterns with their small fingers, repeating the syllables aloud, laughing when they sounded funny. And then came the first warning from within the Ark. The galaxy might see this world differently. There would be risk. The Galactic Union could notice, could object. But Salen silenced the fear with a single thought. If this is the only chance for my people, if this world offers even the smallest window, I will take it. We have already lost everything else. As the Ark approached orbit, the blue and green world grew larger, more real, more alive. The Vayari felt something they had not felt in decades, a sense of possibility, of a new beginning. And in the hearts of the young and old alike, a quiet song began, a song of life, of survival, of trust yet to be built, and of a future waiting just beyond the horizon. Elder Salen stood at the observation deck, gazing down at the swirling clouds, oceans, and lands. His voice was barely more than a whisper, yet it carried across the Ark, reaching every listening soul. We were lost. We were abandoned. But perhaps at last the universe is offering us a hand, perhaps. Hope is not dead. And in the silent hum of the Ark's engines among the tired, pale, frightened Vayari, something began to bloom, fragile, precious, and unstoppable. A spark of life, a spark of trust, a spark that would change everything. The Vayari Ark drifted closer to the blue and green world, a small planet orbiting a quiet yellow star. Every system they passed felt alive. Each sensor reading confirmed life, and yet none of it compared to the signals that had drawn them here. There was a rhythm in the planet's broadcasts, music, chatter, laughter that was different from anything in the galaxy. It was raw, chaotic, full of imperfections, but beautiful in a way that made the Vayari's hearts ache. Inside the Ark, Elder Salen called the council. The chamber was dimly lit, but the room was filled with the hushed excitement of a people who had not felt hope for cycles. "This is the moment," Salen said, voice steady but soft. "We will make our first contact. We will speak, and we will ask for refuge." Not everyone was confident. Among the council members, murmurs of caution ran like an undertow beneath the surface. "And what if they refuse?" asked Dr. Vera, her voice shaking slightly. "What if they fear us as the galaxy has feared us for decades? What if we are cast out again?" Salen met her gaze. "Then we have lost nothing we did not already risk losing. But we will not go silent. Silence has kept us weak. Silence has kept us dying. We speak now and we ask, not as conquerors, not as beggars, but as beings seeking life." The Ark's transmission systems hummed. A message was prepared, simple, direct, yet filled with all the emotion that had long been buried. Lyra, the small girl who had once asked if anyone would ever care, pressed her hand to the console. Her tiny voice whispered, "Please, let them hear us." The message was broadcast across the planet's atmosphere. It was not a complex declaration or a demand. It was a plea. "We are a people without a home. We have been cast out by the galaxy. We seek refuge. Will you hear us?" On Earth, the message appeared on screens, radios, and satellites. It was short, strange, and utterly unlike anything the human species had encountered before. For a moment, the planet fell silent. Governments and scientists scrambled to understand the source. News anchors interrupted programming to discuss the sudden appearance of the alien signal. People everywhere looked up at the sky with a mix of fear, wonder, and disbelief. At the United Nations headquarters, debates raged. Some argued for caution, for quarantine, for rejection. "We cannot allow unknown life forms to approach our planet," one ambassador shouted. "They could be dangerous. They could bring disease. They could attack." But others spoke differently. Dr. Miriam Hayes, a linguist and expert in first contact protocols, stood before the assembly. "We have faced refugees before," she said quietly but firmly. "We have known what it means to be cast out, to be hungry, to be afraid. These beings are asking for nothing but what we ourselves might hope for: safety, shelter, understanding. If we turn them away, we become the same galaxy that abandoned them." Her words rippled through the chamber. Slowly, cautiously, the debate began to shift. Humanity had long prided itself on compassion, on finding common ground even in the face of fear. And while some voices remained adamant in their caution, a coalition of nations quietly began to prepare for action. Ships ready to meet the Ark, medical teams prepared for every possibility, and communication specialists crafting a response. On the Vayari Ark, the crew watched as the world below seemed to awaken. Cities glimmered with lights, oceans shimmered in the sun, and signals returned, not just as echoes but as an unmistakable attempt at communication. The humans were reaching out, unsure, nervous but reaching. Ceylon felt a tremor in his chest, a sensation that had long been absent. Hope. For decades he had lived with the weight of abandonment. For decades he had seen his people fade. And now, the first hand stretched across the void, not to strike, not to push away, but to meet them. The first human shuttles rose to meet the Ark. Their engines cut through the upper atmosphere with precise coordination. Each ship carried diplomats, scientists, and emergency medical personnel, all trained for first contact, but still feeling the human tremble of anticipation. On board the Ark, the Vayari children pressed their faces against the observation ports, eyes wide with wonder. The adults held their breath, unsure if this moment would bring salvation or a new kind of danger. As the shuttles approached, communications channels opened. Words, strange at first, flowed back and forth. The humans spoke carefully, asking questions, clarifying intentions, ensuring safety. The Vayari responded, their voices trembling with relief, gratitude, and a cautious joy that had not been felt in decades. Lyra clutched Elder Ceylon's hand, eyes shining. They want to hear us," she whispered. Ceylon nodded, emotions tightening his throat. "Yes, little one, they want to hear us. And maybe, just maybe, they will help us." For the first time in cycles, the Vayari felt a future opening before them. It was fragile, uncertain, but alive. They were still exiles in the eyes of the galaxy, still cast out by most worlds, still burdened by their past. But here, on this small blue planet, a new chapter was beginning. A chapter where fear did not dominate, where compassion could rise, and where even the most broken among the stars might find a home. Ceylon looked out at the approaching shuttles, at the people who had chosen empathy over fear, and he whispered to himself, "We have been cast out by the galaxy, but perhaps at last we are not alone." The Ark's engines hummed with renewed energy, carrying the Vayari toward Earth's welcoming horizon. Children laughed quietly. Elders sighed with relief, and even the sick, too weak to move far, could sense the possibility of life once more. In that moment, the distant stars no longer felt like a prison. They felt like a path to something new, something precious, something worth surviving for. And as the first shuttles reached the Ark, a bridge between two worlds was quietly, cautiously, beautifully formed. The first Vayari shuttles landed softly on Earth's plains, their silver hulls glinting in the morning sun. Humans approached cautiously, keeping a careful distance while Elder Ceylon and his council guided their people off the Ark. Every step on solid ground was new, strange, and terrifying for the exiles. The grass beneath their feet, the warmth of the sun on their skin, the gentle wind, all of it felt unreal. Children clung to their elders, eyes wide with awe and fear. Lyra walked slowly, taking in the world she had only seen from orbit. Humans stood nearby, hands raised in gestures of peace. They wore simple clothes, carried equipment, and spoke softly, trying to show that they meant no harm. It was not an easy welcome. Some humans were frightened, whispering that the Vayari might carry disease or might deceive them. Others were curious but unsure how to act around beings so unlike themselves. Even among the Vayari, fear ran deep. Decades of rejection had left scars. Every human glance seemed like judgment, every word could hide mockery. Some even hesitated to leave the shadows of the shuttles, preferring the safety of the Ark to the unpredictable world below. Yet small bridges began to form. Human children, sensing the fear of Vayari children, approached with gifts, simple things like toys, books, or drawings. Lyra watched as one human girl offered her a colorful ball. She hesitated, hands trembling, but the girl smiled warmly. "You can play too," she said. That simple invitation broke something inside Lyra. For the first time in cycles, she smiled without fear. Elder Celan saw the moment and felt hope stir. "Trust is fragile," he told his council, "but it begins in small acts. A word, a smile, a gesture." Doctors worked tirelessly, examining every Vayari for lingering illness. Some adults protested, fearful of needles and machines, but the humans spoke gently, showing kindness rather than authority. Slowly, the sick began to regain strength. The weakened stood taller and laughed again, their voices carrying over the plains. Schools opened their doors to the young Vayari. Teachers introduced them to human language, customs, and stories. It was confusing at first. Vayari minds were sharp but unaccustomed to the chaos of human life. Noise, variety, emotion. But the children adapted, bridging gaps faster than their elders. Lyra loved the lessons, though she sometimes grew frustrated at how slowly the older Vayari adults learned. On farms, humans guided Vayari in planting Earth's crops. The first attempts were awkward, tools unfamiliar, soil strange, but progress came quickly. Hands worked together, human and Vayari, and the rhythm of cooperation slowly replaced the tension of fear. In city labs, scientists and engineers worked side by side, sharing knowledge, teaching, learning, and laughing at mistakes. It was an exchange of life itself, a mutual rebuilding of trust. Still, doubts lingered. Some Vayari whispered in dark corners about the risks of trusting humans. "What if they turn against us?" One elder asked. "What if they send us away as the galaxy did?" Celan replied gently. "Fear cannot guide us forever. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it. We must choose to step forward." For humans, too, it was not simple. Some leaders worried about security, about resources, about how the world would change. Citizens debated endlessly. Should they share their homes with strangers so different from themselves? But slowly the actions of ordinary people began to speak louder than fear. Communities opened shelters. Farmers shared food. Children played together. Music flowed across the plains as humans and Vayari taught each other songs. Sometimes alien, sometimes familiar, sometimes a strange mixture of both. The most profound moments came in quiet, unplanned interactions. An elderly Vayari taught a human child to hum an old Vayari tune. In return, the child showed the elder how to paint with colors that the Vayari had never seen. Laughter bubbled in both languages, bridging centuries of isolation. Every smile, every shared moment became a stone in the foundation of trust. Elder Celan walked among his people one evening as the sun set, painting the sky in oranges and purples. He paused at a field where children of both species played together. Lyra chased a human boy, giggling, her laughter rising above the wind. Around them, humans and Vayari worked together, some planting crops, some repairing buildings, others simply talking, sharing stories, learning. Celan felt the weight of decades of exile lift, just a little. "This," he whispered to himself, "this is why we survived. This is why we endured the cruelty of the galaxy. To see kindness still exists. To see that even broken hearts can find each other." But he knew the struggle was far from over. Trust was a delicate thing, fragile as the wings of a bird. Any misunderstanding could shatter it. The Vayari had been betrayed before, and humans had reasons to fear. But the first seeds had been planted. And as any gardener knows, seeds once planted can grow into forests if tended carefully. As night fell, the stars above seemed less lonely. The Vayari gazed upward, remembering the void they had crossed and feeling for the first time in generations that the universe might not be so cold after all. Somewhere far above, other worlds watched and perhaps envied. This fragile alliance forming on a small blue planet. And on Earth, for the first time in cycles, two species separated by the vast darkness of space felt the beginnings of something powerful. Hope. News of Earth's decision to welcome the Vayari spread quickly across the galaxy. Some listened in disbelief, others in anger. The Galactic Union had long considered the Vayari a problem to be contained, and suddenly one small planet defied them. Human leaders had ignored the warnings, ignored the risk, and extended refuge to the exiles. Ambassadors from other species began sending messages. Some were polite but firm, questioning Earth's choices. Others were sharper, almost threatening. Your planet will regret this, one communique said, its tone cold and unforgiving. You invite danger, chaos, and disease. The Union will not tolerate your recklessness. On Earth, the messages were broadcast to government halls, to public screens, to scientists and citizens alike. Fear gripped some humans. Was the galaxy about to retaliate? Could Earth withstand the power of distant fleets of entire species united in anger? Yet amidst the fear, voices of compassion rose louder. Dr. Miriam Hayes spoke again at the United Nations. She stood before the assembly, calm but unshakable. We are human. We have faced storms, wars, famine, and disease. We have known what it is to be cast out, to be rejected, to be left alone. The Veari ask not for power or conquest, but for life. If we turn them away, we become the very cruelty we have always condemned. Her words rippled through the chamber. Slowly, nations began to back her stance. Aid convoys were dispatched to strengthen medical facilities. Diplomatic teams prepared for negotiation, not conflict. And citizens, inspired by stories of children laughing together, farmers working side by side with the Veari, and families sharing meals, began to voice their support. Humanity had chosen a path of courage over fear. Meanwhile, aboard the Veari Ark, Elder Seelan watched the messages from Earth. He saw debates, tension, and uncertainty, but also hope. His people had feared another betrayal, another rejection. Yet here was a world that, despite its own weaknesses and fears, had chosen to extend a hand. For the first time in cycles, the Veari felt the possibility of safety, of dignity, of life beyond mere survival. But not all reactions were distant. A few extremist factions in the galaxy sent fleets to monitor Earth, their sensors trained on the new alliance. Some even tested the planet's defenses, sending small reconnaissance drones to probe the Veari settlements. On Earth, military strategists worked tirelessly to ensure no accidental conflict could escalate. The humans were prepared, but their intent was not to dominate. It was to protect. Seelan addressed his people in the council chamber. His voice was quiet but firm. We are seeing what the galaxy thinks of us, he said. Fear, anger, and suspicion. But we also see what humans think. Compassion, courage, and hope. We must learn from this. We must walk carefully, speak honestly, and act with integrity. The galaxy may not forgive us, but Earth has chosen to believe in us. The Veari responded in kind. They worked tirelessly, showing their willingness to adapt, to contribute, to honor the trust given to them. Scientists shared knowledge that had once been jealously guarded. Engineers repaired ships and facilities. Teachers educated the young. Every action sent a clear message. They were not a burden. They were partners. Tensions flared in unexpected ways. Some humans worried about resources, food, energy, housing. Some Veari feared that despite appearances, humans might change their minds. Arguments arose in quiet corners and old fears surfaced like shadows at dusk. Yet every time doubt threatened to dominate, someone, human or Veari, would remind the others why they had come this far. They would remind them that courage was stronger than fear, that compassion was stronger than isolation, that trust once offered could rebuild worlds. One evening, Elder Seelan stood on a hill overlooking a Veari settlement. Children played nearby with humans, laughter rising in the warm evening air. Farmers worked in fields side by side. Engineers repaired water systems and buildings together. He saw smiles where once there had been only sorrow, heard voices singing where there had been silence. Seelan turned to Dr. Miriam Hayes, who stood beside him, her eyes reflecting the golden sunset. They have threatened Earth, he said quietly. Yet your people still protect us. They still choose to trust us. How can I ever repay such courage? Miriam smiled softly. You do not need to repay it, she said. You show the galaxy what is possible. You remind us all that compassion is stronger than fear. That mercy, once chosen, creates power far greater than any weapon. The Veari nodded, understanding the weight of her words. The galaxy might reject them. The Union might condemn Earth, fleets might watch and wait. Yet here, on this small blue planet, something remarkable was happening. Two species separated by space and history were proving that kindness and courage could be stronger than suspicion, stronger than anger, stronger than exile itself. As night fell, the stars above seemed to shine brighter. The distant fleets might have been watching, the Union might have been fuming, but on the ground humans and Veari shared meals, shared stories, and shared life. They laughed, cried, learned, and hoped together. And in that simple, profound act, they forged something the galaxy could not take away: trust. Ceylon raised his eyes to the heavens, whispering softly to the children who followed him. We were cast out by the galaxy. They abandoned us. But here we are seen. Here we are welcomed, and that is more powerful than anything they could ever send against us. Somewhere beyond the void, the galaxy watched, perhaps in disbelief. And for the first time it realized that being strong was not just about fleets, power, or dominance. True strength could be measured in courage, in mercy, and in the unyielding choice to protect life, even when doing so brought risk. And on Earth, the Vayari smiled, laughed, and lived, not as exiles, but as part of something greater, something stronger, and something profoundly human. Years passed, and the Vayari were no longer the fragile exiles who had drifted through the void. With Earth's guidance, they rebuilt themselves, slowly at first, then with growing confidence and skill. Their silver skin regained some of its old shimmer, their eyes sparkled with life once more, and their voices, long silenced by fear, filled the air with songs of hope. The Ark, once a lonely vessel drifting in the void, had become a bustling hub of learning and collaboration. Children laughed in its corridors, humans teaching Vayari games, Vayari teaching humans songs of the stars. Laboratories buzzed with discovery. Engineers from both species worked together, designing ships, energy systems, and tools that combined the strengths of Vayari ingenuity with human creativity. On the farms of Earth, the Vayari and humans worked side by side. Crops grew in patterns unfamiliar to either species alone, but thriving under their combined knowledge. Rivers were cleaned, soils enriched, and harvests doubled. Small communities sprang up near the Ark, a mix of humans and Vayari living together, sharing meals, stories, and traditions. The Vayari had learned to laugh again. Lyra, now older and stronger, ran through fields with human children, her silver hair catching sunlight. She taught them Vayari songs while they taught her human stories. Elder Selen watched from a hilltop, heart swelling with pride and relief. He saw what decades of exile had nearly destroyed, and he felt it reborn, not just in survival, but in strength, in joy, and in partnership. Yet the galaxy beyond remained a shadow over their lives. Fleets monitored Earth's progress, curious, skeptical, even hostile. Pirates and raiders sometimes tried to attack distant settlements. But the Vayari were no longer helpless. With human allies, they built patrols, defenses, and fleets designed to protect life, not conquer it. And when threats came, humans and Vayari fought side by side, a seamless bond forged through shared struggle and trust. In one remarkable incident, a group of raiders attacked a Vayari outpost on a distant moon. The attackers expected easy prey, but what they found instead were Vayari warriors, trained and confident, backed by Earth's human pilots. The battle was brief but decisive. Raiders were repelled, not out of aggression, but because the exiles and their allies had learned to protect what mattered most: life, dignity, and home. Ceylon felt a surge of emotion as reports came in. His people, once hunted and broken, had become strong, disciplined, and courageous, not for revenge, but for survival and protection. "This is what we were meant to be," he whispered. "Not victims, not outcasts, guardians." And the galaxy began to take notice. Union officials sent observers to Earth, not with fleets of condemnation, but to study this strange, small planet that had taken in exiles and made them strong. Some envoys came to learn, some to warn, and some quietly to reconsider their own policies. They saw humans and Vayari living together, working together, laughing together, and they wondered if perhaps strength was measured in unity, not fear. Back on Earth, the children of both species became symbols of hope. Schools and playgrounds were filled with laughter, music, and learning. Vayari children ran freely in human cities, unafraid of judgment, their voices blending with human tongues in songs that celebrated life. Lyra often led them, teaching lessons of resilience, courage, and the importance of trusting those who offered kindness. Scientists pushed the boundaries of medicine. Together, humans and Vayari finally eradicated the lingering traces of the old disease that had once isolated the exiles. The knowledge they gained was shared across the galaxy, not as a weapon but as a gift. Life, they realized, was stronger when shared. In cities, Vayari artisans crafted architecture that reflected both species' traditions, creating buildings that were not only functional but beautiful, a testament to collaboration. Parks, bridges, and plazas became gathering places, celebrating harmony rather than dominance. Every creation was a symbol. The Veyari were no longer cast out. They were part of something greater. Even Elder Celan felt change in himself. He had carried the weight of exile for decades, burdened by despair and responsibility. Now he felt the lighter weight of hope, pride, and accomplishment. Humans had not only given refuge, they had given purpose. They had reminded the Veyari what it meant to live fully, to contribute, and to belong. One evening, Celan stood with Dr. Miriam Hayes, looking at a fleet of ships newly launched by Veyari engineers. Some ships patrolled distant colonies, ensuring safety. Others explored far systems, mapping stars that humans had never seen. The joint fleet was small compared to galactic powers, but it carried a strength far beyond size, trust, courage, and unity. Celan spoke quietly, words almost lost in the hum of engines. We have grown stronger than I ever imagined. Not just in body or knowledge or power, but in heart. The galaxy may still doubt us, may still fear us, but we know ourselves now. We know our worth. Miriam smiled, her eyes reflecting the glow of distant stars. You have given the galaxy a lesson it will not forget. True strength is not taken. It is earned. And what you have earned here, life, respect, trust, cannot be taken from you. Celan nodded, feeling the truth of her words. Together, humans and Veyari had transformed exile into opportunity. They had taken despair and made it hope. They had taken fear and made it courage. And in doing so, they had begun to reshape the galaxy itself, proving that even the most abandoned, the most cast out, could rise again with the help of those brave enough to extend their hand. The stars above were no longer cold, distant watchers. They were witnesses to a new chapter, a chapter of rising strength, unity, and the enduring power of hope. And on the ground below, laughter, song, and life flourished, echoing a promise to the universe. The Veyari had been cast out, but they had risen stronger than ever. The sun rose over Earth, painting the sky with gold and orange. Elder Celan stood on a hilltop overlooking a valley where humans and Veyari worked, played, and lived together. Lyra ran across the fields with a group of children, laughing in both languages, her silver hair catching the morning light. Around her, humans and Veyari built homes, repaired ships, and planted gardens, a living testament to cooperation and trust. Decades of exile had taught the Veyari many harsh lessons: fear, betrayal, loneliness. But they had also learned hope. Here, on this small blue planet, they had found more than safety. They had found family. And the humans had learned as well. They had learned that courage was stronger than fear, that mercy was more powerful than judgment, and that helping those in need could change not just lives, but the course of the galaxy. In the council hall, Elder Celan addressed both humans and Veyari. His voice carried across the room, steady and filled with emotion. We were cast out by the galaxy. We were left alone in the void. Many of us feared we would die forgotten, nameless, and without hope. But you humans gave us a hand when none others would. You saw us not as exiles, not as danger, but as beings worthy of life. A hush fell over the room. Children of both species pressed closer to the walls, listening intently. Adults, some still cautious, some overwhelmed by emotion, watched as the man who had guided them through darkness spoke of gratitude, hope, and unity. Celan continued, his voice trembling slightly. In your actions you have shown the galaxy something it has long forgotten, that life is precious, that trust is powerful, and that compassion is stronger than fear. Together we have built something that neither of our species could have done alone. Together we have created a home where hope thrives. Outside, the sounds of life echoed, children laughing, birds singing, the wind rustling the leaves, and the distant hum of Veyari ships in orbit. Ships built by Veyari hands, flown by humans, carrying both species across the stars not to conquer but to explore, protect, and connect. News of Earth's success spread slowly at first, then like wildfire. Across the galaxy, species that had once shunned the Veyari began to watch in awe. Reports came of humans and Veyari standing side by side to defend colonies, of children playing together in harmony, of scientists and engineers collaborating across cultures. The galaxy could no longer ignore the example of what courage, kindness, and unity could achieve. Some envoys arrived cautiously, unsure whether Earth and its allies were a threat or a marvel. They observed quietly, learning the lessons of coexistence, realizing that power was not only measured in fleets or weapons, but in loyalty, trust, and the strength to protect life. Slowly, the galaxy began to change. Elder Selen walked with Dr. Miriam Hayes to the edge of the valley. She looked at the bustling settlements, the fields of crops, the children running freely. "You've done something extraordinary here," she said softly. "You've shown the universe that even the abandoned, even the exiled, can rise again. That kindness can be stronger than any fear." Selen smiled faintly. "We did not rise alone. Humans gave us that chance. And in giving, they too have grown stronger. This is the power of hope, Miriam. Not just surviving, but living. Not just existing, but thriving." Lyra ran up to them, breathless with excitement. "Elder Selen, come see. The children built a bridge across the stream. It's made of both human and Vayari designs." She tugged him toward the structure, her laughter bubbling over with joy. Selen followed, feeling warmth spread through him. Every plank, every rope, every carefully balanced stone symbolized something far greater than construction. It symbolized trust, unity, and life renewed. As the sun climbed higher, Elder Selen looked toward the sky, toward the distant stars that had once been cruel and indifferent. "We were cast out," he murmured. "We were left alone. But now we have a